Hello everyone. Are you kidding me? Come on. But I just made it public. What happened? Hello? 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 So, it seems to be some sound issue. I fucking hate that. The sound is always off in some way. I fucking hate that. The sound is always off in some way. Okay, cool. I'll discuss things later. Basically, I streamed about Hladimir like 4 years, sure, 4 days ago, and the whole the setup was broken because of some OBS shenanigan. And on top of this, you couldn't see the game. And on top of this, I can play New Vegas because New Vegas has music which is copyrighted. So whatever. I would just reiterate what I've said last time in a less angry way because a few days back I was really angry for quite on news, to be honest. Rick said those stuff like 6 or 7 months ago in July, and that coincided with similar concern by activists in general that wanted to capture, because this is it, it's a capture on ship Hladimir in the Hemahe sanctuary. I'll go over that, and so probably I should explain to you who Hladimir is. So Hladimir is a lone beluga that was found, I believe, 2 years ago in a town in northern Norway called Hammerfest, which has nothing to do with the festival. So so this is Hladimir, and as you can see, he was found first. He was begging for food, which is unusual for this is normally something that ex-captives do. In general, solitaries don't do that as a rule. And he was found with that harness, with that sort of harness. At first, he was believed to come from a sort of swim with facilities with belugas, captive belugas from the White Sea called the Arctic Circle. But the Arctic Circle denied, and now we believe he has some kind of military background, that he was used by the Russian government for some kind of operation or experiment or whatever, and then he escaped. And since then, he travels westward, I believe, bordering the Norwegian coast. And whatever, I mean, where to start? So, Obari, which I told before in another stream, he made that story, that widget thingy that you have on Facebook, and he says, and I got angry legitimately. He says, he's a refugee. I'm hoping that Norway will accept him, make him a citizen, create a sanctuary for him. So, first thing first, for any NPC out there which will like say, but Julian, well, a sanctuary, he meant something. No. He means a captive sanctuary. This is obvious from the context. I mean, what do you think they will like capture him and put him in some like protected marine area in some other, like, come on. No, it's obvious that they meant like captive sanctuary. The whole underlying logic behind people that wanted the sanctuarization, I mean, the captivity of Hladimir was sanctuarization in its captive form. That's why there are people that advocated to. I mean, it's so true that, let me show you that. This is so true that the people from Hemahe made a public statement claiming exactly that. Hey, we are ready, basically, we can't house Hladimir because the whole sanctuary was geared toward the housing of those two belugas we already have. We can just shove a third one, blah, blah. It will mean a lot of technical difficulties, logistical, financial, blah, blah. So the point being that this is something that was brought up. Rick is only like riding the train, and is it? And I mean, where to fucking start? So first thing first, I think it's extremely funny that Rick talks about him as a refugee like when we talk about human refugees, with everything that implies ethically on such, on a citizen, implying that he has some kind of recognition of cetaceans as, you know, people, sapient beings and whatnot, which should be understood under law, under some kind of personhood status, meaning that we should understand them as real social agents, you know, not just animal or ownership in that abstract sense, but like social agents we can interact with, give rights, etc. Like, and then his solution, his ready-made NPC solution, is sticking them in a glorified cage. Do you realize how dumb this is? Like, genuinely. I mean, again, I had a lot of admiration for Rick, and I continue to believe that he's far more of a progressive, than most of his peers, especially people like Marine or Visser, which are downright regressive on some points. But, like, come on. And like, here's the thing, if you imply that they have to be equated toward something similar to a citizen status, don't you think that the first thing that should be like brought up on the table is the reality of autodetermination, bodily autonomy, the possibility for them to speak for themselves, to make their own decisions in their lives? It seems so intuitive to me, and it's so funny. Like refugee, given the situation of refugees in France and the United States, where they're literally stuck in cages, and put into institutional like facility with everything it means in terms of control, deprivation of freedom, blah blah, of fundamental human rights. I mean, I'm sorry, the parallelism is so funny. It's like, and then so here's the thing. Rick talked about this. Is it recording? Yes, a few months back, and I mean, let me show you that part. I'm not going to review the whole thingy. I mean, I laugh now because it seems so absurd to me, and I don't know how to imitate him. So he says, the solution is simple. Establish a large protected sanctuary for Hladimir in one of Norway fjords. The sanctuary will conceive as spacious. First, knowing what spacious means, a richer very vocable, knowing his past project in Ancona and the current one in Karimun Jawan, Bali, I won't trust him when he says spacious, but fenced off fjords, so yeah, captivity, like, come on, people. If any of you starts to, like, deliberately lie and claim it's not what he meant, this is what he means. Giving Hladimir space to roam, which will be far less than today. Like, this is the fucked part. I mean, the whole thing is fucked, but this is the fucked part, right? He says Hladimir will be safe from fishing nets, fish bars, and boat propellers. So here's the thing, Rick. First, no cetacean today is safe from fishing nets, fish farms, and boat propellers. If this is your argument to put him in captivity, I mean, I'm sorry, man. Like, what? You will stuck like every cetacean today in captivity because of this? Like, I'm sorry, but do you realize how dumb this is? What about solitary cetaceans? Solitary or so-called ambassador cetaceans today are very well, exposed to those risks. In fact, last year in 2020, at least two of them, Danny and Zafar, died because of boat collision. So what? Do you advocate to capture solitary cetaceans, stock them in so-called sanctuaries? Like, I'm sorry, but if we had to like use statistics and such, do you understand how this is like? Do you understand the flow in reasoning, Rick? Like, know as well that the idea of capturing solitary cetaceans, sticking them in dolphinariums, was very much so advocated by some pundits from the dolphinarium industry. A few decades back, they wanted to capture Randy and stick him in the Boudewijn Sea Park in Belgium. So Hladimir has to be moved out of harm's way. Like, why? Why? So no respect for his bodily autonomy, no respect for his consent. Like, one thing that seems dumb said like this, but do you realize that Hladimir escaped his net, right? Like, he basically escaped captivity. He didn't escape captivity so he could like find another better, safer form of captivity. Do you realize that, Rick? Like, what? Do you think like he thought like, oh yes, I'm going to leave that dolphinarium to go to another glorified one? I'm sorry, but he escaped because he didn't want to live there, knowing that one of the arguments used by the pro-caps and sometimes pro-sanctuaries to dismiss liberation politics is stressing out how cetaceans tend not to leave the place when you cut the nets or whatnot. Like, he wants to be free. I'm sorry. If you do that, it is against his what he wants and what he decides to do. And Norway with its stunning fjord. So if you saw my previous streams, you know that Rick and also Marino does the same thing. They don't hesitate to use loaded abstract terms like generally an appeal of toward beauty to legitimate sanctuarization. This is stupid. I have no other words. The arguments we have to use to legitimate this kind of politics should be based on logistics, ethics, and pragmatics, not on beauty. I don't care if the fjord looks like beautiful, blah blah. This is obviously a human and cultural bias. I don't care if this fjord is tuning or if it looks like crap or whatever. Do you understand that generally? I mean, it reminds me of Trump, right? The beautiful, we're going to make that beautiful wall. Like, come on, man. Also, who is going to own that? Rick, the WDC, who? Whom? The Norway government? Who is going to pay for it? Who is going to legally own them? Because that's the other thing, right? They never talks about the legal aspect of it. They never stress out the fact that someone is going to own them. Okay, Rick or the Dolphin Project, I don't know whom, legally owns the three cetaceans in Bali and Karimunjawa. Okay, they're owned. Like, this is so funny from someone that kept doing the parallelism between cetacean exploitation and slavery in the United States. Like, he went as far as to name his own son Lincoln because of this, but then he doesn't realize that he legally owns dolphins. Okay, like, sanctuaries like dolphinariums are based on a logic of ownership and property. You cannot escape this shit. So Hladimir is a defector who needs asylum. So asylum is basically sticking him in captivity. Do you realize how dumb this is? So, do you? I mean, it's what is happening today in France. So, but do you believe that it is the ethical goal of all of this when we talk about asylum seekers and such? When like people that flee, I don't know, Sudan or Afghanistan or whatever, when they come to Europe or the United States, is to stick them in an institution where they will remain until the end of their lives because of the traumatism they could have like lived as refugees and whatever. Do you realize how dumb this is? Especially when you stress out the idea of cetacean sapiens on personhood. It will be devastating if, after all of he has endured, he lost his life as a preventable accident. You know that captivity, even less, more tolerable, I mean, more tolerable form of captivity, like also increased the rate of certain risks, right? Like the depression lived by captive cetaceans is very real. It increases the immunodepression. That's why, for instance, dolphinarians have to drug them with immunodepressant and antidepressants and stuff that reinforce their immune system so they don't just die. Do you realize that? Do you realize that captivity is also like hidden risk regarding certain pathogens and whatnot? Like, this is a dumb argument. Again, you want to change, you want to prevent those accidents. Why not trying to advocate for changes in naval traffic in Norway, right? Like trying to regulate how boats moves in those localities, what schedule, maybe outlawing some specific boats, some practices and whatnot. Like for instance, when the some countries outlaw jet skis because of that. Do you like this kind of stuff was like organized in Dingle when they had like fungi when he was still there? Like, I'm sorry, this is doable. I mean, obviously not like that. You need to advocate for it. But so the necessary, so he trusts people, but we can't trust him to like. He trusts people, and we're going to break his trust by capturing him, which means a world traumatic event because captures are never gentle. They're always traumatic events. On sometimes they die because of this, out of stress and whatnot. We're going to break his trust in us to stick him in the sanctuary until the end of his life. That's the idea, Rick. To protect him, like to realize how fucked this is. This is fucked. There's no other word. And also, the I'm sorry, but the other thing about this, no, I think I've said what I had to say. This is dumb. I mean, if you want to challenge me on that, if you have some new arguments, go on stream on try to debate me. Okay, go on stream. Okay, I'll take 5 hours to listen to our arguments, but go over them in good faith. But like this for me cannot be defended. This for me it just cannot be defended. Hladimir is a person. He needs to be taught to not stuck in a sanctuary. If I succeed from what I'm trying to do with Randy, I genuinely hope I can try to replicate with other people and whatnot the same experiment with him. Because I think he has a lot of things to say about his past, his experience. He could make claims, and he probably has a lot of things to say about human stupidity and greed. So, finger and excuse segment. Oh, that's a bad place for me. The other thing I want to talk today is yeah, I want to go over. I want to go over well, what's that? No, okay, that's the procedure. Okay. Okay, so that's normally that's the document, is it? Okay, yes. So I go over that. Now you know what? I'm going to play first, and then I'm going to over that. And then I will stop the stream because this is. Maybe I'll wait. I'm just trying to no, that's bad. I think I'll change the I wish I had like if it wasn't for the copyright, I will use background music. I will use real shit by Board of Canada, EMT, and that kind of stuff. I just use elevator music to fill the voids. It's just for pragmatic reasons. When is it? No, what? Okay, so I mean, yeah, I wanted I've read part of the document a while ago, and I want to know if this intersects with my understanding of what Rick says about cetacean being neurotics because of the food deprivation that was enforced on them, which is fundamental for training to happen at all. My understanding is that Rick's claims, which I also claim this is the case, I agree with that. By the way, this is fucked, but I'll make a stream about bodily autonomy. But my understanding is that Rick's understand that ex-captive cetaceans beg because of the food deprivation that was subjected on them in order for them to consent to the tricks. The tool of training by itself is food deprivation. That's the base idea. And basically the idea of Rick is not to train them to be wild, whatever the fuck, like the other idiots. It's more like we have to have them realize that they don't need our training to survive. That they don't need us to, not us to give them fish, but rather that the system of oppression itself, that they don't need to be our slave. Basically, that's it. The system of exploitation itself is broken. That he can trust us again. That will be the idea. Even if he doesn't formulate it this way exactly, I think that's an extremely powerful idea for many reasons. And it's extremely shameful that, not shameful, but it's a shame that Ric, but despite being so progressive when it comes to that, he's so regressive on other points. I mean, how could he realize that? Literally give them a subjectivity, because that's what he does. He assumes their subjectivity on that they have some internal processes, on internal reasonings and whatnot. Something that Visser doesn't do, for instance, because Visser is a behaviorist. And he fucks up. He fucks up in the end because we think like captivity is acceptable and sanctuarization is acceptable. And again, this idea that we have to go fundamentally against training as a structure, as a process of retraining, and not going to that whole white blah blah, learning them to be white bullshit, is extremely fucking powerful. And I believe Ric self-contradicts himself from time to time. He's ambiguous on this. And I wanted to delimitate exactly in his writing, claims, etc. in 20, 30 years, he contradicted himself or not, whether he followed that line or not. I want to be sure. And the other thing I want to be sure is, about that, basically. So when he says that, yeah, I mean, depends of what he means by that, because my understanding of the problem, I remember I had heated debates with Ivan on this, is that you want it or not. Okay, here's the thing. A lot of the dolphins that for the which are, hold about it, sorry. When most, oh my god, my voice, I'm sorry, this is a disability I have. I can't just, it's extremely difficult for me to control my voice. Articulate, on my articulation as well. It's a disability I have since my childhood. When you, okay, English is not my native language, so I have to put an extra effort into. Most dolphins which are captured in the first days to the first week after capture, something like 1/3 of them die. I think it's bigger than 1/3, but I'm confident in saying that something like 1/3 of the freshly captured dolphins die in the first weeks. And one of the reasons is they refuse to eat and they die because of this. That's why much of the time they have to force feed them. And not only they refuse to eat, but a lot of them die of hunger, food deprivation, because they basically don't kowtow, they don't submit themselves to the process of food deprivation which underlies training as a whole. That's at least my understanding of what Ric and other ex-trainers and whatnot have to say about this. Because of this, non-trained cetaceans that are extremely rare in the industry. There are some fringe cases, mostly non-tertiary dolphins, for instance, botos. My understanding of it is that they choose to, because botos and whatnot are rare species which are not very common in captivity. Possibly those places may have made some kind of calculation of, okay, we don't train them, but because it's a rare species which is extremely costly and difficult to find, so we prefer to let him as a sort of exhibit, and then that's my understanding of it. But normally, l'écrasante majorité, the crushing majority of captive dolphins are trained. Ergo, they must have some kind of neurosis-based, PTSD kind of symptoms based around food deprivation. Some of them may be more resilient than others on that prospect, but they must have some kind of neurotic understanding of food. It's impossible. It's unfathomable to me that they don't have that. So when he says that, it's a way. I've seen that in a lot of activists, right? To completely deny this idea that we can explain begging readily as a problem of as a PTSD like symptom because all fucking dolphins are different. And trauma is trauma, man. Like, so all people that survived concentration camps didn't live this experience in the same way, but it's absolutely clear that it will have some kind of impact on your mind. Like, you don't have to go to a concentration camps or slavery. You know, if you have like grandparents or parents that lived through the Great Depression, you know that a lot of them have like extreme behavior relating to the extreme conservation of food stuff, resources and whatnot. You know that. This is something that was described by, for instance, Art Spiegelman in Mouse, relating to his father that survived Auschwitz, right? Like, why is this surprise that this exists in cetaceans? We know PTSD-like symptoms are well known in superior vertebrates. We know this from dogs, monkeys in experiments. Like, again, this is not surprising. And it's so funny to see activists readily deny that, but then they're the first to go toward this idea of, oh yeah, they forgot they forgot how to hunt in captivity. They're like, they totally forgot that, blah blah. Like, describe them in behavior stems and whatnot. So funny, the hypocrisy. Like, so. Oh yes, I disagree with like the back into the wild, blah blah, but I will go over that in another stream. Like when they say, remember who and what they were, I so dislike that because it readily assumes that yes, they obviously like the victim of traumas and whatnot, but that they're basically completely dumb after captivity. I don't believe that. Like. What we know from ex-captives doesn't show them as totally lost, idiotic. On the contrary, it shows them as far more resilient, both physically and mentally. There are problems, like for instance, when it comes to relating to external groups and whatnot. But this, for me, can be perfectly explained because of stuff that we see in psychoanalysis. I mean, not exactly psychoanalysis, but in broad studies of psychic traumas or understanding of what refugees or ex-slaves or ex-concentration camps. When I say concentration camps, I just don't mean like Auschwitz or whatever. I mean broader experience in dozens or of cases from different parts of the world or whatnot. Yes, they have traumas, like grave traumas, but they're not like idiotic. Their brain doesn't come out of their mind because they had traumas. This is ridiculous. Like this idea, and also the idea that I want to put forward. If you're familiar with the problem of psychophobia validism, I'm sorry, but those are the arguments used by the pro-sanctuaries. They're the same on pro-capsa, like mostly pro-sanctuaries. They're the same arguments used against against people with disabilities relating to their minds and whatnot. Like, oh, if someone has schizophrenia, oh, let's stick them in a mental ward. Oh, this person was traumatized because of the Vietnam War, the Afghan War, or whatnot. Oh, let's stick them in a special institution, blah blah. Do you realize how dumb this is? Like, there is like a true empirical data that clearly shows that the prejudice used against people with disabilities, mental issues, or whatnot they are not as dangerous. Sorry, as dangerous for So some of them can be dangerous for people and for themselves, but not at the extent on not at the extent which is tends to be assumed by popular culture on most people in general. And it's extremely funny to see the same readily pro-institutionalization, pro-confinement rhetorics that readily goes toward the idea of control on confinement before looking at the alternatives, considering the empirical data, blah, blah, the statistics, being used, as much against specific humans, minorities, populations, blah, blah, as in cetaceans. Like, again, their identities as opportunistic foragers. What if their identity is being something else? This is why the Kenneth Levasseur Surface program is so important, right? Why a dolphin has to be this ready-made idea of what an ideal dolphin has to be? What if they decide to have another lifestyle? What if they decide to live into a hybrid cetacean-human society where feeding is more important, or where prey capture is less important? Why not? Why? And before you use that argument, oh yes, it will be a pain in the ass, blah blah. It will be hacking to dump a lot of money, blah blah. Sanctuaries are exactly that. Do you realize this, right? Like sticking cetaceans, like 3 of them or 1 of them, into an oversized pen, or the sized pen in the case of Ric. This is also a money dump. Do you realize this, right? Like, don't you believe our money will be better spent in having them, like first, if you feed them daily, etc., it will be the same problematic than sanctuaries, but with less money, because there will be no pens. So fuck that. No ownership, no taxes to pay, no administrative shenanigans, so whatever. But certainly, like, I'm sorry, but why not? Don't you think the money will be better spent in having cetaceans speak for themselves and create hybrid human cetacean societies where they will be able to express themselves, make claims, generally really be understood as citizens, not like what Ric says with Hladimir or Thomas White or all these fucking idiots, like genuinely, like trying to put this into law and have them make claims about the territories they want for themselves, the resources they want for themselves and whatnot. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're really a pro-cetacean activist, don't you think we have to listen to them? Like, I'm someone that is extremely critical of some of the uses of standpoint theory by activists sometimes, but like, if standpoint theory had an application, this is it. I'm sorry, but whatever. That's the problem, though. Like, there is no wilderness. There is no natural habitat. And again, I will go over that, but if we have, the gist of it is, if we have to understand them as people, we have to understand the spaces as socially mediated spaces that they understood as theirs. I'm sorry, political spaces, social spaces, which were, oh my God, my voice, I'm sorry. This, again, is a disability. I can't really control that. Spaces which were understood as theirs for what, millions of years, which were politically mediated, socially mediated, that probably are the center of conflicts and negotiation between different populations. Like, if we assume that there are people with cultures and whatnot, I'm sorry, this cannot be compatible with a notion of wilderness or natural habitat. It just cannot. If you understand this, then you have to understand, like, spaces inhabited by current indigenous populations as wild, which they are not, by the way. They're heavily modified since thousands of years by the use of fire stick farming, hunting pressure, silviculture, whatnot. Why not admitting possibly that cetaceans modified those environments through the use of hunting pressure or whatnot? Again, if we want to resolve that, we need to talk to them. We need to have their claims. We need to have them to say, hey, I want this, I want that, I don't want this, I don't want that. And also, like the notion of wilderness is a recent Western construct that was well shown by anthropologist Roderick Nash in Wilderness on the American Mind, blah, blah, I will go over that. Why? Why, Rick? Why, Rick? Argue about this. Why, Rick? I mean, again, the notion of natural is so fucked because it's literally a denial of the social. When you say natural, it's literally a mask that nurtures any possibility of thinking analytically and concretely social and human relations. Why not having a dolphin live free for 40 years of his life, or their lives, in an environment which will be human engineered and human shared, without nets on training or whatnot? Why? 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 Because you want to have them stick to this idealized version of the wild dolphin. This is so fucked. So you will really sacrifice their factual freedom, liberty, and I'm sorry, it's obvious that a free cetacean lives a better life than a captive cetacean, like their well-being and whatnot, for this idea that, this trite idea of safety, blah, blah, and then this idea that a cetacean should stick to an idealized version of what is a wild cetacean. Why? Why? Oh, and I hate that because like I even use the same fucking rhetorics, the natural rhythm of the seas, the tide, the current on exposure to live fish. First, this is so funny because the key argument used for sanctuarization will be the impossibility for them to catch live fish. But then they talk about the exposure to live, whatever. But this is so, what will be the point of rhythm of the sea, tides, blah, blah, if they're literally captives? Like, what is the point of that? Again, if they're free, they can experience all of this shit and more. I hate this notion of this medically. Here's the thing, this medicalist, yeah, it makes me think of the trans-medicalist argument used by Truscoms or whatever. If you're not familiar with transgender rights, basically, if you don't know that I'm transgender, but I don't want to transition, blah, blah, whatever. But the point is, this medicalization of the sanctuary discourse is so symptomatic of the problem here. Like therapeutic. It makes me laugh because it harkens back to a whole idea of, the dolphin that will be like in a quiet and tranquil. It harkens back to the idea of a word that I had, this notion of retirement, which I fucking hate because retirement in our society has nothing to do with how sanctuaries function. Nothing to do. It's such a non sequitur. Not a non sequitur. It's such a bad equivalent. A non-equivalent, sorry. This idea of therapeutic, like, I don't care if like the natural property of the salt is therapeutic to them, if they feel a bit better compared to the previous tongue-based environment or whatnot. I'm sorry, you're literally depriving them of freedom. I'm sorry, removes the net and they will be free. They can like move wherever they want. They can have whatever relation they want. They can interact with free population, which is extremely fucking important. You're denying all of this shit. Like, this whole discourse, this medicalist discourse, I'm sorry, it's not justified. Like, natural sea environment, there is nothing natural with a sea pen. If you pen them, you'll totally deconstructing everything that does the oceanic environment on cetacean societies as they were, as they are. When you pen them, they can't hunt, they can't go outside, they can roam for dozens of kilometers to find fish. They can't interact with free populations. Sorry, my voice is really fucked today. I'm really sorry. I mean, I shouldn't be sorry about this, but they can't interact with free populations. They can't interact with other humans' population, like Hladimir does, for instance. They can't do shit. They can't do shit. The only people they can interact with are the fucking trainers, because that's what they are, or that will enforce on them at least some form of training. I'm sorry, but in order to how about it? A big part of captivity in general are medical checkups, medical and possibly medical interventions like surgeries, giving them meds and whatnot. In general, I'm sorry, but as far as I'm aware, they use training systematically. Maybe you can argue that you can make some kind of non-negative training, or that they will respond to it because of past training or whatnot in captivity, but like, come on, it's still training. It's still an extremely contrived system of institutionalization and control under a medical aspect, like, come on. It's like there is no natural environment, like they can't hunt, there is no the species of fish that they would normally hunt, they're not here because pens let very small species of fish enter, but not like the biggest one that bigger cetacean species like turtles and belugas normally hunt. Like, I'm sorry, but... And also cetaceans use a wide range of different hunting techniques and explore different biomes that they can't explore there. Let alone the fact that they totally cut from any political aspect, like the different populations there, they could encounter their daily interactions, like all of this negated. You basically, I'm sorry, you're basically taking a small part of the sea on, like, it's as if there was like the sea, and then you cut a little square here, and you stuck the fucking dolphin here. Do you realize? I mean, so health and physical condition. Yeah, that's true. Like dolphins are generally they have less musculature and whatnot. That's why they have to make physical exercises so they regain musculature and whatnot. But this use some kind of training. So use of sonar. We know cases of cetaceans that have issues with echolocation and that live free. One of the reasons for that is because there are not all cetacean populations, because some cetacean species are more solitary than others. That's true. But one big factor here, I'm sorry, I'm just going to interrupt this because I want to... Okay. One big factor here is that cetaceans systematically help each other. We have, I'm sorry, as far as I'm aware, hundreds of well-reported, anecdotal, photographed, filmed cases of cetaceans with scoliosis, maimed fins, blind, with echolocation issues, breathing issues, no teeth, deformed jaws, etc., 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 that lived until quite old. In fact, extremely old cetaceans also go in that category, because other cetaceans helped them and gave them fish when they could not eat for themselves. This is clearly a systematic aspect. So, not taking in account when this is extremely well discussed or known inside of our activism, because all of the fucking Karens are sharing this on social medias when new cases are reported by BuzzFeed on the literature and whatnot, is extremely fucking disingenuous from them. The discourse about sexualization and captivity cannot make abstraction of that problem. It exists. I'm sorry. There are dozens of studies about this. I'll go over that because I want to show you the data, but I'm extremely confident on this because I went over that. Not considering this is extremely disingenuous by Rick or Marino or all those people. And yes, we can conceive of cetaceans that live in a cetacean society and cannot or have problem using their sonars. And the other thing is, why not cetacean human hybrid societies where they care by both, or even care by humans without captivity? We know that ex-captives tend to stick where human populations are on back for food and whatnot. So what is the fucking problem if they stick to local areas? Ability to catch live fish, I'll discuss after. Defensive skill against predators, which one? In general, cetaceans, as far as I'm aware, not all cetaceans attack predators. They tend to attack in mobs. Some cetaceans attack other predators. And also, like, this is stupid because of other reasons. Basically, shark attacks, I don't know any case of a shark attack on an ex-liberated cetacean, like none. They're more prone in some zones than others. First, it's only concerns like tropical areas, obviously. They're more prone in some environments than others, like paradoxically shallow, pristine, clear water areas are more prone to shark attacks than places that don't look like that, and also like muddy estuaries. Secondly, overall shark population worldwide like crashed since 50 years, especially with like big shark species like bull sharks, tiger sharks, and whatnot that also are both man-eating on cetacean predators. And thirdly, like again, cetacean population tend to fend off shark attacks. We as humans can do the same. If we had devices to talk to them, we could like make concerted plans, etc. Same for orca attacks. Orca attacks are a possibility, but it's only in specific geographical areas. As far as I'm aware, there are no cases of orca attacks on liberated cetacean, blah blah, whatever. Or even if it happened, what? So there will be like one fringe cases over 100 cases where those things don't happen. Like, you don't have to be a crack of statistics to understand that this is statistically dumb. Most of the adjacent arguments used by pro-caps and pro-sanctuaries are like, what about sharks? What about red tides? What about storms? What about illnesses, transmission? What about genetic pollution? What about blah, 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 blah. All of this shit? Like, statistically speaking, when you look at the overall cases by from ex-liberated cetacean, for instance, the Kenneth Balcom list, it doesn't show that. Like, even if it showed that, they're statistically irrelevant. Every piece of data out there, every study, every anecdotal evidence I know shows that. Like, this clearly statistically irrelevant. Like, I'm sorry, when I see fucking dumb Karens, like, come using those stupid arguments, like, it's not a gender thing, but most of them are Karens, like, there is a 0.01% statistical possibility that a shark may eat the dolphin, therefore, there will be no liberation. Do you realize how dumb this is? Generally, do you realize how dumb this is? It's interesting that he said he put the wild under comillas. Sorry, I forgot the English name. Under commas. Because I also do this, because it implies that he has some kind of skepticism or more elaborated reflection on the notion of wilderness, and that means that the notion is kind of flawed, blah blah, but whatever. This is so stupid, so stupid. I'll go over that, but too many human imprints. What is human imprint? What is imprint, Rick? This rhetoric in ethology, like, here's the thing, in philosophy or economics or politics in general, in every fucking field that exists on Earth, when you have to use a term, you have to define the term. What is meant? You can't just take a term, weave it like that, like a piece of paper, or just like dump it in the middle of the debate. When you use a term, what does it mean? The wilderness. What do you mean by wilderness? Nature. What do you mean by nature? Okay? They use imprinting, blah blah. What do you mean by that? I'm sorry, in ethology, classical Lorentzian ethology, blah blah, imprinting behavior are an extremely specific set of behavior, mostly exposed by birds, which are clearly, well, first they're innate, like they're clearly mostly determined by genetics, evolutionary pressure. They can be transmitted by gene and whatnot. There may be some kind of epigenetic influence over this, but it's absolutely clear that they're mostly like determined by natural selection and whatnot. Secondly, they're extremely specialized. Like you have like imprinting of the newly hatched bird on the first thing it sees. For instance, what it assumes is the mother, and then you have like form of sexual imprintings in later in the life of the bird, and those are extremely well studied phenomena. They were one of the most studied so-called innate. I don't like the use of the notion of innate because it's more complex than this, but so-called instinctive behavior in non-human animals. And thirdly, again, we can describe them, we can like see it repeat itself in hundreds, if not thousands of cases. We can experiment on it, blah, blah. In mammals, you see some sort of imprinting behavior when it comes to newborns, but it's less defined than in birds, blah, blah. But I'm sorry, I know the science behind. I don't know of like concrete imprinting stuff on cetaceans. If they mean like, okay, they're like habituated to humans and influenced by them. Okay, but what do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean by that? Like some vague like, oh, I'm too used to humans so I become dumb. It means nothing, Rick. We have to go toward the analytics. I'm sorry. I know cases, liberation cases, they don't show that kind of shit. Or have forgotten or lost the skin needed to survive. Who do you know this? Like, obviously, a lot of like, I hate vagueness. Vagueness is the enemy of reason. Like, obviously, like most hunting techniques used by cetaceans are learn-based. What I argue is that even if, obviously, cetaceans have cultures, blah, blah, they must have some kind of innate, like basic innate drive that pushes them toward the pursuing of life prey, especially fast-moving, not necessarily small, but fast-moving prey that are like more or less analogous to whitefish and so on. That could explain as well why the three captive cetaceans in Bali and Kalimanjaro weren't observed eating the fish that were in deep end, because they were extremely slow-moving fish that didn't exactly fit the role of fast-moving whitefish, baitfish. And a good proof of that is when they released another species of fish that was fast-moving on more like a whitefish, you know, those very compressed laterally fish with shiny white scales with a very specific reflection, blah, blah. They immediately pursued them. So what's the logic behind that? I mean, whatever. And even if it wasn't the case, even if I'm wrong on the innate, which we find in big cats, anyone that owns that cat knows that. That was well studied by ethologists. I will show you studies, but the point of that is that even if I'm wrong, why couldn't like free cetacean help those ex-captives feed? Why couldn't we feed them while being free? Why not? Why do we need nets? Why do we need training? Why do we need hypermedicalization? And yes, on the other argument is this is important as well. No, this is a side thing, but basically, it's true that from studies I've read the species of fish that was captive in the not captive per se, but that was found in the sea pen in Bali was also hunted by some local terrestrial populations in Oman and whatnot. But it's very possible as well that, you know, the banks of culture, it's very possible that they also eat fishes that they don't necessarily want to eat or have a special desire to eat, but they do it because they know, because they have a world reflection behind, because they know that eating them is part of the diet and is good for them, or it's part of their culture, whatnot. In fact, we know, we know of some tour shops and purposes populations that eat sometimes EJ and whatnot, or we don't exactly know why. Although you can argue that it may have some kind of physiological ground, because we know when some animals are like salt deficient or have deficiencies in some oligo-elements, they tend toward eating some specific minerals and whatnot, so you could argue, but whatever. Something that were the human we could call spirit, why not calling it for cetaceans? I thought Rick supported the idea of cetacean sapiency. For them it's too late. How do you know this, Rick? That's the thing as well. How the fuck, like, they can use the physical arguments, blah blah. How do they assess non-releasability when it comes to mental aspects? They always allude to that, but always in vague fucking terms. They never go to the specifics. Never. Because they can't. That's the thing. It's totally arbitrary. It's totally arbitrary. Totally. They know it's fucked. They know it doesn't work from a logical point of view, yet they abide to it. On what? So when humans have like mental issues because of institutionalization, whatnot, we stick them in cages? I mean, yes, mental asylums, blah blah, on such, yes, practices that are more and most questioned today. That's why the United States now you have like group homes instead of mental wards that are violently fought against by human rights activists on anti-validism, on ableism, anti-ableism, on psychophobia activists today. And also the subject of reform, because like mental wards like in the 50s were in the mental wards today. We have like again, why not a system like day hospitals? Day hospitals are places where when you have like mental issues, like I do, although not to the degree of a lot of my friends or whatnot, but I have mental issues. When you have a lot of problems, when you have like depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, blah blah, specific traumas, and you need the assistance of someone, a professional, every day or one day of the week, or in a scheduled way, you go to the day hospital, and they can assess you and treat you and whatnot. You have a specific doctor which is assigned to you. We're not doing that with cetaceans, especially with first contact. Why? Again, like, it's too late, but show this. Like, and again, like, he can use all of the fucking physical-based arguments he wants. It's clear that his main crown arguments hinges on the mental one. He was not quite mad. So why, Rick, do you advocate for sticking people with like mental disabilities, or also this? Harken back to people with like low IQ, etc. Down syndrome, blah blah. In the 50s, they used to stick people with Down syndrome in mental institution. We know that it's fucked. We've changed that. Now there are like this is why I should stop using the word retarded, because of all of this. No, there are like self-determination movements by even people with Down syndrome and whatnot. There's a big controversy when it comes to the treatment of so-called, it's a fucked up term, but low functioning autistic people, blah blah. Like what? So do you advocate to put people understood as mad in like stuff analogous to sanctuaries? Like, oh my god, I can't believe this shit. He was fed all he wanted to eat, was clearly master of his word. No, he wasn't. He was a captive that rammed his head against the wall. He was suffering. He wasn't the master of his word. The fuck are you talking about, Rick? He used the same fucking rhetorics that Zeus. He used the same fucking rhetorics that Procaps here. Oh yes, they're happy here because they are fed whatever they want. We give them rich quality food, blah blah. They pampered. Do you realize how fucked this is? In order to justify a whole bit about pro-sanctuarization, he used classical arguments used by Procaps to justify captivity. Oh yes, the lion is so happy. He's master of his word. He's like sleeping all day. We pamper him. We give them oil massage, blah blah. These stupid rhetorics. I can't believe this shit. Also, probably happy if we simply let him go. First, I know what he's going to work. Ah, yeah, they're going to wander off in the fucking open sea and die. First, every fucking accidental or voluntarily dump-like liberation, for instance, escaped military cetaceans, blah blah, that we know of, they didn't went off and died. We just know this shit, okay? Most of the time, they stick to the place they were, they begged for food, and there was clearly a structural and systematic aspect to this. We just know that shit. Like, empirically speaking, we know that data, it doesn't go in the direction of the stupid soccer mom argument of, oh yes, if we like the dolphins, they're just going to do whatever the fuck they want and die. This is stupid. We just have the data doesn't go in the direction. I didn't know that. Yes, Rick, nobody knows. That's why you can't go toward those conclusions without data. The data doesn't go in that direction. And even if you wanted, you could like argue that yes, but the absence of data, blah 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 blah, it doesn't prove anything. Okay, but why not giving cetaceans the benefit of the doubt? Why? A mental creeper, really? This is stupid because he knows that's not true. He knows that's not true because first, the dump and run thing, that was probably a practice back in the day when dolphin captures in the 70s, right? Before the 71, 60s mostly. End of the 60s, sorry, not 70s. Before the 71 Marine Mammal Protection Act in the United States, when they captured a lot of fucking dolphins, a lot of them died. And the dolphinarium industry wasn't as expanded. It was most of an amateur thing. So probably they couldn't sell them or they knew they would probably die, blah, blah. So, okay, because of physical reasons, etc. So there, the dump and run thing made kind of sense. But today, this practice doesn't exist. Or maybe in like third world countries where the dolphinarium industry is booming and expanding in a similar way it did back in the 60s. In Europe and the United States, but I refuse to believe this exists today. Nothing data-wise, this doesn't seem to be the case. But like, I don't mean mistreatment. Mistreatment doesn't necessarily mean going with a baseball bat and like hitting the dolphin like the stupid Draymond in Gardaland. No, mistreatment can be structural. Sticking them in captivity is mistreatment. Preventing them to do the basic shit a dolphin will do, hunting-wise, social-wise, politically-wise, is mistreatment. Like, again, this is like what I said about exploitation. Exploitation doesn't mean necessarily mean active training, blah blah. You can exploit someone while having him passively wait in a cage. Like, it's so funny because they don't think in structural terms. They think in that. They think in those sensationalized, oh yes, yes, they're mistreated. Captivity is mistreatment by default, by definition. I don't know what he's talking about. Oh my god, I forget. A dolphin filled with so much hate that I knew I could never reach. What the fuck does it mean? Like, what if the dolphin hate us, but they still can perfectly live as a free individual? They're not connected. Like, what, he has to reach him like some kind of dolphin whisperer, telepath bullshit, like, because I'll go over the people that believe they're dolphin whisperers that have some special contact with cetaceans. I know Russell. I mean, he doesn't really claim that. His claim is different, but some people in our activism in our sphere have sport claims of that nature. I hate that discourse of like, oh yes, I'm going to reach him, I'm going to put his hand on his head and try to make him understand. I fucking hate that rhetoric because it systematically is used by people that clearly engage in form of exploitation, whether elephants, horses, whatever the fuck, to legitimate more lenient, softer form of non-human exploitation. Always. Fucking always. I don't care about him reaching the dolphin, blah, blah. I care about concrete form of exploitation, modalities of exploitation. What is the connection here? So he's filled with hate? So we can't like... What does it mean? It logically doesn't make sense. I'm sorry. So, or there is a prerequisite that you have to reach them in a certain way for them to be open to the idea. It doesn't make sense. It's not just that, it's also the system of training itself, which is based on food deprivation. I don't know why he doesn't talks about this. A world without tides, without the taste of south of the ocean. Shut the fuck up, Rick. 1/3 of the industry, not 1/3, 1/4, more than 1/3. Something like 1/4 of the industry today is swim with based. They're not all tank based. I hate Rick does the same shit at Marino. They assume that the entirety of the industry is tank based, is based on tank based dolphinariums. This is not true. No, I'm sorry. A big part of the Caribbean industry is swim with based. A big part of the Japanese industry, dolphinarium industry is swim with based. A big part of the Russian one, not exactly. I think there are 2 or 3, but of the Black Sea port tour, and then the Ankara Turkish coast. Swim with facilities obviously are better incrementally, but they exist. They're parts of the industry, and they are as fucked as the tank-based one. Obviously, they're better objectively, but like, do you realize this? Do you realize that any idiot at the Rotan Institute, at the UNEXO, even you know whom? Moby Solangi, the big fucking, which is literally the equivalent of a. Do you realize that he's basically to dolphins what a fucking Nazi would be? Do you realize that someone like Moby Solangi, who has captured hundreds of dolphins, known as one of the biggest bodies of the dolphinarium industry, alongside Jay Sweeney, has an entire swim with based dolphinarium, I believe in the Mississippi, no, or Louisiana. Wait. Yes. No, not the Institute for Marine Studies, the other one. Ah, maybe I'm wrong. Okay, I forget about that argument. I know the Moby Solangi one. I know the Jay Sweeney one is not. I know the one in Muria is not swim based, but it's a lagoon. But I know the Institute for Marine Mammal was I thought the Institute for Marine Mammals was CPEN based. Wait, I may... No, it's this one. I don't know why I thought. I misread I have an article and it's stuck in my head. Okay, I dismiss my argument, but... Okay, no, it's not pen-based. It's yes! 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 The James Sweeney one is pen-based. Because, you know, there was like Moby Solangi, that guy Lindbergh, I believe he was called. And then there's Jay Sweeney. Jay Sweeney is responsible for hundreds of captures of dolphins. He was one of the biggest fucking dolphin capturer and dealers in the history of the dolphinarium industry. He's currently the director of that facility in French Polynesia. Do you realize that those retarded arguments are not retarded? No, because I just talked about those. Yeah, I say stupid because those inane arguments. Oh, the taste of sounds of the ocean. Without. Sorry. Oh, the tides, the taste of sound of the ocean, the life, the fish I'm gonna come, yes, yes, the rhythm of the... You realize the stupid arguments could be used by that motherfucker, someone that you understand as an enemy, which you rescued some of his captives in South America and Central America, right? Could be used by him to justify his own facilities, right? Or any of the people that have like CPEN-based dolphinariums today. Do you realize this, right? Oh my god. I mean, yeah. Created by nature, this kind of stuff. Like, I used to word like that. Here's the thing, though. The dolphinarium industry likes to use a certain rhetorics of dolphin as domesticated beings, blah blah, and then obviously that's the argument I used when I made that tiny article back in 2013 in that Charlie Hebdo rubric. It was before Charlie Hebdo was like very well known abroad. You know, the idea that oh yes, obviously they're not, genetically speaking, they're not domesticated animals, because domesticated animals and so-called wild animals are different. They were not selected by artificial selection to have certain traits that push them toward human companionship and the tolerance of human handling. We should, the wild animals, blah blah. And this is true in this idea that obviously they're not like genetically made and geared toward human companionship, but because the thing though, the notion of wilderness is fucked, because it's a denial of the social and the political. Like, it forces them into a pre-made role of naturality that they have to play, and denies any possibility of a horizontal relationship with humans. And also, it denies the fact that as social and political beings, their understanding of their spaces and their societies are abstract, cultural, and whatnot. Like, again, the notion of wilderness, like, I hate this forever wild, blah blah. The notion of wilderness and nature are fundamentally incompatible with an understanding of cetaceans as sapient beings with cultures. They're not incompatible. I'm sorry. can't we just say, from a very concrete analytical point of view, that cetaceans, because of concrete identifiable reasons, suffer from A, confinement, B, training, C, institutionalization, on D, a whole system behind that, which is allowed by a whole cultural set of ideas, legal aspects related to the ownership of non-humans, blah blah, capitalism and whatnot. Like, you can use concrete ways to describe the problem of cetacean captivity on the plight of cetaceans without using the notion of wilderness, nature, blah blah as blankets. We don't need those blankets. We can create a future where cetaceans and humans share a common reality without resorting to the idea of naturality and whatnot. Like, the notion of naturality, I'm sorry, it's fucked. It's forcing them, forcing upon them, this idea that they must stick to this idealized rule of a dolphin, or if they don't, they're like a dirty, forever tainted dolphin that must. It's so funny because this notion of having to take someone, right, that was tainted by something, and then you either have to reconvert it, or they were like forever tainted, and then you have to stick them in a institutional-like system. Do you realize it was used in the 19th century against so-called fallen women, that it was an underlying view, an underlying process, conception behind institutionalization of people with mental illnesses and whatnot. Again, read Foucault. I'm sorry if it sounds like a meme, but read Michel Foucault. He resolved that problem like more than 50 years ago. This is stupid. We know cases of, we know very concrete cases in the Kenneth Balcom list of ex-captive cetaceans that perfectly lived as free individuals. Especially one case that was an ex-Navy one, I believe, that lived 70 years at least as a free individual, had integrated themselves in a cetacean society and had kids and whatnot. On this, also there is the ALAT / Black Sea one with Mukametov on the Deutrich station and whatnot. This is stupid. This is empirically stupid. And even beyond like empirical cases, like, I'm sorry, why couldn't they be cared? But first, you have to show that captive borns cannot adapt, blah, blah. The burden of proof is on him. Secondly, he proved nothing. Like, he just, like, used, like, vague generalization, anecdotal evidence, using two cases that, in a fringe way, could be interpreted as proofs. No studies, no data, no list, no research, nothing. He just, oh, I've seen that case. I thought that maybe it shows that they can't be freed, therefore I'm right. Do you realize how stupid this is? Do you realize how epistemologically and heuristically stupid this is? I can't believe this shit. Again, why couldn't they be cared by a common cetacean human society, whatever? Why? The burden of proof is on you, buddy. And not just you, because all of these motherfuckers, Thomas White, Marino, Visser, all of those people, again, the burden of proof is on them, and they haven't shown anything in the literature, any convincing argument, any research that goes in that direction. Oh yes, yeah, what? They handled the Atlantis case or the Keiko case like a sledgehammer argument, despite the 100 other cases not showing unfavorable views of ex-captive liberations. On the Atlantis case, on the Keiko case, clearly showing a more nuanced view of liberation politics once you look at them with a critical eye. Like, come on, man. They have known. Yes, the will of their parents. What do you mean? They have known. So what? A cetacean population couldn't, be introduced in another area where they never lived and create their own societies? You know, you've liberated yourself, cetacean, in individuals that were native from the areas where you liberated them, right? It was done before as well, as far as I'm aware. It was done by Doug Cartledge in particular. What the fuck are you talking about, Rick? he refers. I hate this notion of battery dolphin, by the way. What do you mean by trained to? Okay, this must be what. This must be his criticism of Foster and whatnot. Like, this must be his criticism of behaviorist methodology used by people like Foster to allegedly teach them to hunt fish and whatnot, which he apparently goes against, and I think it's a good idea. But for me, the problem is not that they were like dumbly like zombies, like parroting how to act as a wild cetacean, blah blah. I don't think so. I think they're just neurotic individuals that perfectly could hunt, blah blah, but just believe that if they are not fed by humans, they're going to fucking die because of, again, psychological structural aspects that can be understood, that we know from psychology, that we've seen in other non-human species. I mean, this must be his criticism of the altruist liberations, but this smells like faction wars between different figures, him and Foster, him and Doug and shit, instead of having like more concerted objective of trying to systematize liberation politics, trying to collaborate with other actors, denounce them critically and such, not denounce them, but review what they did critically, making like a study but whatnot. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't want to say the mind of Rick is broken, because it's everyone, but until this procedure has been carefully monitored over time, we should consider each case on its own merit, okay? But you just, with using this sentence, you just claim that we should, like, the way I interpret this sentence is that you want to put ex-captives on trial and carefully monitor them to see what happens, how they respond to not being in captivity anymore, which is not, they are still in captivity as part of the problem. But then you say that they... Okay. Now I understand. When he says there is no returning them to their natural habitat, okay. He wanted to say that not their natural habitat in not their exact the place they were captured before, because they weren't captured in a particular place. Okay, I get it. But the sentence is clearly double meaning with the notion of natural habitat on the species level. So this is stupid. Okay. Dismiss what I've said before. But my criticism stands because... No, whatever. Dismiss what I said. I'll go over the opposition of Rick. I get it. I'm going to go back to the I need to breathe a bit. I should drink more water when I speak. Ah, this is dumb. I should have settled there. Should have settled there and get... So my key point is basically that until we just go beyond the idea of the wild, or having to return them into the wild, but instead understanding that they're just people taken in a multifactorial reality where social interactions and everything abstract, political, blah, blah, has to be taken in account, and where their own voices matter, like, we're just going to be, it's never going to work. We're never going to go beyond the mainstream activism, and we're never going to properly consider their needs. Yeah, that's some. I don't know why he mentioned that, because it's not done systematically in all dolphinarism in those exact circumstances, but whatever. Sometimes they do that before feeding them, but not. Yeah, yeah, that's behaviorism. That's behaviorist bullshit. My understanding, like extinguishing behavior. What about thinking this in like psychological terms? Like understanding that they were victims of a trauma, that if they behave like that, it's not because they were trained like that by proper and conditioning, but because they had to do that or they died. You know what I mean? Yes, you could argue that behaviorism is based on negative and positive feedback, therefore it's the same thing. Not really, because again, in behaviorism, behaviorism is the denial of the mind. You make abstraction of the mind as a hypothesis or as a causal subject in why someone or something acts in a certain way. And the thing is, they act this way because of their fundamental fear of dying. And because they're like, because a whole trauma as a structure, as a mental structure, emerged in their mind and pushed them toward a certain attitude toward life and toward humans or whatnot. That's my thing. And we have to address them as individuals, not as things, not as. And it's so funny to see like people that boast like cetacean culture person who blah blah, and then different behaviorist methodology on vocabulary. I'm going to oh shit. Whatever. Yes, that was basically my primary hypothesis about what you do, right? If they beg, you don't give them food when they beg, but you give them food all the fucking time, so they basically are not hungry anymore, and they realize that they don't need like to beg to just survive. But it's not just that. I think it's fundamentally to make them realize that the system of exploitation they live through is not relevant anymore. Even if they were like neurotic all of the until the rest of their lives, at some degree they must understand that the system of exploitation as it was isn't here anymore, or not at the degree that it was before, that it's out of reach, and that. And again, this is why interpersonal relation are not denying the importance of understanding them as subjective people, subjective agents, as people, where projecting it to their mind is important, is like how to put it? We have to create a relation of trust. On trust, creating trust is fundamentally, by definition, admitting that you go in the other mind and that the other goes in your mind. That there is a projection on how you think or how you will act, and this is what we, how about it? It's so wild to see. At the same time, extremely progressive stuff that admits the idea of a non-human mind, personhood, trust, etc., horizontal relations, and then that, which is basically behaviorism with captivity. Why? Okay, we pay him to do each of the vectors. Yeah, but when he says that without talking about the food deprivation thingy, it passes as some kind of behavioral stuff, like operant conditioning and whatnot. Ooh, I gave them fish abstractly and I learned that, which is not how it works. It's absolutely clear. If you toss, even repeatedly, a dead fish to a free dolphins, they're not going to, after 50 attempts, start to know. There are some cases of begging free populations, but it's absolutely clear that there are populations that are starving because of overfishing, dead zones and whatnot. Solitary cetaceans, which, believe me, they had their share of idiots trying to feed them fish. They don't beg for food or they systematically refuse that fish. We know that there is a trove of empirical evidence, anecdotal blah blah that shows that. So yeah, reinforced behavior in a dolphin. That's basically behaviorist bullshit. I can't believe this shit. Why is he not talking about food deprivation? Because I know for a fact that in other articles he talks about the problem of food deprivation. Yeah, habitat dictate behavior. No, it's not the only factor, my dude. No, that's behaviorist bullshit. Habitat dictates. Yeah. The Skinner, please get out of that body. Fuck off of that body, Thorndike. And also, the behaviorist mantra is so funny to me, because if you believe that non-humans are like that, those malleable pieces of clay that you can reinforce or input condition response over to have to display this or that behavior, why this whole discourse about not being able to free or modify some ex-captive dolphins based on mental aptitudes and whatnot? Don't you realize that both are incompatible? And also the other thing is, before that, he seems to imply a criticism of training to act them to have them trained to act on in commas, have them trained to be willed one. But that's what he means by that, by clearly using behaviorist vocabulary and whatnot. Ric, as far as I understand, is self-contradictory, because sometimes he implies a non-behaviorist, more open-minded, progressivist take on cetaceans. In other post articles and whatnot, he clearly regressed toward the standard behaviorist bullshit. Why is he not talking about food deprivation? Why? Food deprivation is the base. He kept talking about the problem of food deprivation for decades, or he doesn't talk about this. You can't ignore, because you can advocate for the stupid behaviorist bullshit, but you cannot readily ignore the existence of food deprivation as a solid alternative hypothesis on why cetaceans beg. I mean, I'm sorry, it seems so self-evident to me. yeah, empower the dolphin. So, what about not having them live in nets? What about not training them? What about trying to create a genuine social relations with them? What about trying to talk to them? What about letting them interact with free populations? What about all of this shit? This is not empowering, Rick. This is behaviorism with extra steps. This is captivity. Like, it's not just Rick, by the way, because again, Rick is more progressive than his peers on that. None of this shit is empowering. None. They're not like prisoners. They are prisoners of like death. I hate this shit. When the same people that advocated for decades about cetacean personhood, blah blah, they're people like us, big brain, etc. They totally like, they don't have the balls to just confront their ideas and just say, hey, they are de facto prisoners. Like, okay, so when they say assume that you know nothing, yet you have all of these assumptions about condition response, ex-captives being idiots, blah blah, cetacean having forgot how to like, do you realize that your entire, and also bad, not only do you have all of this preconception, but you use vague anecdotal evidence from like 50 years ago to sustain them. You don't use studies. You totally ignore all of the bulk of studies that were done on that. The bulk of data we have on liberated cetaceans. Like, I saw a dolphin like banging his head on the wall. And then I thought, I don't know if he could be freed. Therefore, my conclusion is the son cannot be freed. Do you realize how dumb this is? Consider the obvious. What about food deprivation, Rick? Oh. It's so funny because assume that you know nothing and consider the obvious. Generally, they tend to be, they tend to be self-contradictory. Because here's the thing though, I know what he means, but sometimes the obvious, what we think is the obvious, can be the result of a bias. The notion of wilderness can be obvious for most people in our cultures, but when you start to get the tools of anthropology, ecology, blah blah, they start to be less obvious. The assumption that the entirety of cetacean behaviors is learned-based condition response, it can seem obvious, but when you start to think about it or look at the relevant literature, it's less obvious all of a sudden. And again, how is this compatible with assume that you know nothing? Like, yeah, he's right on maintain sustained observation. He's absolutely right. Yeah, when he says that, my assumption is that he seems to imply that dolphin trainers have some kind of bias, which is a good thing, but why using trainers though? Why? Why using ex-trainers? Why not telling them to get the fuck out? I think I know why, but he says this, I know what he means, but the thing is, we need research as well. When we do something like that, you have to, like, obviously some degree of research is needed, right? First, because you need that research for like future cases. Secondly, because it could help other operations by other people on reinforce or understanding of future cetacean relations, blah blah. I know what he means, like not purposefully on uniquely free cetacean just for research, blah blah. Obviously, I understand that, but I agree with that, but again, Rick seems to understand some ersatz of the problematic of genuine social relations with them, blah blah. But unfortunately, those ersatz of a genuine understanding of them as person is totally nurtured by all of the behaviorist bullshit and whatnot. Again, why nets? Why? There is no justification for it as far as I see it. But yes, I also advocate that you don't. We don't need like a trillion papers to start liberating dolphins. I think we should do this on. Much of it will be on the go, on that we want it or not, but it's an ethical imperative to do it anyway. But the research is needed anyway. I don't give a fuck about this new age crap. I don't care. It's interesting because a lot when talking with sanctuaries in general, when you talk to them about trusting the dolphin not to do whatever the fuck, or they'll without first contact, right? They'll frontally attack this, saying, but we can communicate with them. But what, you really believe that we can like communicate with them non-verbally? That they'll understand what we mean, and that we will understand what they mean. This is totally utopic. Are you not fucking idiot? Blah blah. But that's literally what he fucking says. Non-verbal communication, being one with the dolphin, blah blah. He's implying that we can have some kind of non-verbal relation with them, a quite tight one. With them. If it's the case, why not? If we can be one with the dolphin on create some kind of non-verbal trust, why not? Why? If you pose some kind of like dolphin whisperer, blah blah, some kind of even, I'm sure he dog whistle to the idea of dolphin telepathy. I'm absolutely sure. It's not the first time. I mean, I don't care if it's not the case, but it's a popular idea in some aspects of. I don't believe in it. I'm extremely critical of the idea of cetacean telepathy and whatnot, but whatever. But then why not? I don't care about this fucking Chinese financial bullshit. I don't care. I care about concrete data, concrete ciphers, studies. Yes, that's what I thought he was doing. That's what at first I advocated for that, but now I wonder if it's not kind of fucked up, because it's also this idea of we ignore you and we don't give a fuck about what you have to say. And I have a doubt on this. I think that it's the kind of stuff that it implies a sort of relation of power, yet it implies a master. My understanding of what Rick tries to imply on what will be an ideal liberation will be to make them understand that this master-slave relationship was broken, right? But at the same time, isn't this a reiteration of this master-slave relation? Like, oh, I'm your master, or no, I'm like... Because my understanding of the critique of Rick against like Foster and whatnot was that someone like Foster and whatnot, they're not saying... They're not trying to make them realize that there is no master and slave anymore, that they're free. They're like training them to be free, right? They're just ordering them to get out. And my understanding is that Rick understood that and was critical of that. But why they do that, like, I don't know, man. Isn't he posing himself in this master relation? I'm generally asking because I don't know. Like, this... Again, it still makes my point. If we can have non-verbal trust-based relations with them, why not? Why training? Why any of this shit? Like the few direction I give to what? The dolphins or the stuff. This is weird. Yes, but I think we have to go going beyond words. I believe that we can, it was done, free cetaceans without all of this shit, but with non-verbal communication, blah, blah. But I genuinely think that we need first contact, at least because of the claim thing, at least because we need them to tell their experiences, not to say directly, I want that, I want this, I want that. And also because genuine relations can only be done with Don't give me this telepathy bullcrap, whatever, okay? Genuine relations, they will only be able... The day we will have genuine relations that will break the cultural barrier on the law for a generalization of the idea of cetacean personhood, on the generalization of an activism centered around cetaceans, it will be done. We will be able to speak to them directly, okay? Even if you believe in all this telepathy thingy, I'm sorry, but even if you believe in this telepathy thingy, you cannot deny that a cetacean-centered activist will have to articulate itself in what cetaceans will have to say, or this will have to be done around reports on direct recording of what they say, on interprets or whatnot. Like, it will have to be done through linguistic contact. You cannot do this with... I disagree with that. I know why they do this in order to prove that they were... But this is... I basically believe that we have to take into account bodily autonomy, and this is an infringement of bodily autonomy. And this is the kind of stuff I believe, like, first contact will, like, dismiss eventually. I want generally to go beyond the non-verbal bullcrap. I know, listen, I know some of you genuinely believe in it, or really into it, on... I don't dismiss really the experiences you may have with cetaceans that make you think, but for me, the next level has to be linguistic, that you want it or not. We have to go beyond that. We can't stick to a non-verbal. Non-verbal is also, like, fundamental in verbal relations. Like, our relationship with other humans is also non-verbal cues and whatnot, obviously. But we have to go toward the verbal as well. Yeah, false word or false theories, that's exactly what I advocate for. That's why I want false words like wilderness, nature, imprinting, false theories, behaviorism, denial of any possible innate ground in cetaceans, all of the notion of wilderness. Yeah, false theories and false words. It's so wild because it's absolutely clear that Ric kind of came close to some of my conclusions and didn't act upon it. I don't know who the fuck is the director for arbitration release. Okay, no, okay, yeah, okay, I get it. I may agree with that, I don't know. I still hesitate. The thing is, when different parties were involved, like in Sugarloaf, on John Rosie, it's on Keiko, it always devolved into shit on Squabble, on internal internal fights and whatnot, and capture, recapture. So I tend to agree with him on this, but at the same time, it can lead to issues. I don't know. I'm generally open-minded on that. But again, why release sites, in the sense that why not having a place, not a sanctuary in the sense of captive sanctuary, but maybe a non-captive sanctuary, if you will. Non-captive, that's it. I'm going to talk about non-captive sanctuaries. A place where, like a Liberia, if you will, a Sierra Leone, like Azad, okay, Azad. You have a place, they're free, they can stick here. There is a local human population they can interact with daily, but they're free. They come and go and shit. That's exactly what Ken Levasseur wanted, the third phase program. And they can become like institutions where cetaceans and humans could exchange on where first contact could be done, on maybe some kind of like sea hospital. I don't, but like, again, like, because here's the thing, the world liberation, I love when activists use the dumping argument when the underlying logic behind liberation politics articulates itself as a dumper run argument. It's, oh, they're going to be there in their natural habitat, and then we're never going to have any interaction with them. An ideal dolphin shouldn't have any interaction with any human. Why? 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 And? Okay, no, I get it. Yeah, he's right. No, he's right. Basically, though, he was going to make another point. Okay, yeah, he's right. Chosen, yeah, that's what I argue. Ostracized from their pod. I don't know if it's as true. It's often argued by activists, but I haven't found so far like concrete proof in the literature that we have like concrete case of cetacean like ostracized from the. I will have to go over the literature. It may be true that, but yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree with him. We will need to again, the fact that he only talks about the scientific literature when it comes to that, and not about behavior, preconception on cetacean, cetacean behavior, psychology, and whatnot, is extremely, on obviously previous liberation cases and whatnot. I think whatever. No, not necessarily. Why would it have to be similar in terms of temperature? Temperature I can understand for some species like belugas and whatnot, but like, why would it have to be similar in terms of tide currents and predators? Especially predators, by the way. I don't understand that. Like in the sense they could be lower, whatever. No, cetaceans are extremely well adaptable. Like, we know that, like, again, they're extremely well adaptable to new conditions. I don't understand that. I don't think this is valid. Again, not necessarily though. Obviously, it would be preferable for the independence, but again, cetaceans help other cetaceans. They give them dead fish as well, freshly dead fish, not frozen, but they why not like the same point I had before, like yeah, this is kind of stupid because some technically they're begging dolphins or dolphins that eat fish from trawlers on they're by definition opportunistic foragers. I mean, okay, the begging one, it would be stretching the definition, but whatever. You can be an opportunity forager and be human dependent in a way. This is like it's a strategy like another. It's a bad strategy, but it's a strategy like another. I get it, Evan. Okay, I get that from the point of view of breaking the this slave master relationship, blah blah. Okay, I get it. But isn't this also yeah? Okay, I get it. But again, if we talk to them, wouldn't this... Should we put the priority in trying to have what they have to say in terms of their experiences, how they live that, how they live captivity on training or whatnot? Okay, but why not putting species of fish which are bigger and couldn't go through the fence? Or... It could be discussed from a vegan point of view, but I'm not vegan by the way, but whatever. Like, there is a problem with fish suffering, but pragmatically speaking, I believe in that case it's justified, whatever. Again, what about like cetacean that help with cetacean? This is why it's so fucked. Also, for me, it's obvious that the netting like create a bias when it comes to the kind of behaviors they have. They can't explore. They can roam in other places. They can interact with different biomes. They can join neighboring pods. They can do shit. I mean, when they're in captivity, they don't have the rapidity and trust they will have if they weren't captives when it comes to like pursuing fish and whatnot. Why pens? Why? Why not letting? Why? You can't do this entire process without fucking pens. Like, also, it's so funny that the person that kept making comparisons between black slavery in the United States and the world dolphin plight, not in legitimacy though. I know that some people on the left want to avoid comparison between non-human and human exploitation, especially when it comes to like black slavery or whatnot. I disagree with that, but whatever. I think that there is some pertinence in that. But I love how the person that kept doing this, like, freeze brand them, like basically one of the most recognizable, most humiliated symbolic aspects of slavery in the United States, but whatever. Yeah, this is true. It's cool that he talks about this, you know. Okay, no, it's cool if he says that. It seems to me that he contradicts himself. I don't know. This is fucked. Absolutely against that kind of shit. Absolutely against that kind of shit. Maybe if it was some kind of like paint-like system that will get off in a few days, I will agree, but a permanent one, no. No, I totally disagree. I don't get it. He doesn't talk about food deprivation. I know he did, because I'm pretty sure I've like stumbled over documents where he talks explicitly about the dynamics of food deprivation underlying cetacean release and whatnot. Sorry, cetacean training. I don't understand why he doesn't talk about food deprivation. This is fucked to me. Which makes me think that he contradicts himself at a certain degree. if you have like a intuitive understanding of them, can't you like recognize them by the features they already have? Whatever. I can see the arguments against this, but I mean, depends on what you mean by unusual behavior, whatever. I mean, I agree with him, but I disagree with him in the sense that why keeping people away? Why? What if they beg? Again, like a beggar dolphin is not a rotten dolphin. It's not a bad dolphin. They're just a dolphin that has a different take on this, that didn't live trauma in the same way. Why not? Why not? If we understood them as individuals, genuine individuals under a social reality, all of this would be of no use. We shouldn't need pens. I do agree that we should show them that they don't need. I agree with some of his methodology, but it's interesting because that goes in contrast to other pro-caps and pro-sanctuary rhetorics. But I don't agree with like this keep people away. Like, why? If he goes to beg people and people ignore his begging, wouldn't he, like, logically speaking, wouldn't he stop? Like, I'll go over the Ivan Godfrey article on this. Yeah, this is so funny. Assume you know nothing simply means that one should not assume that the candidate dolphin can or not can be successfully released back into the wild. You literally did that in your sanctuary, Rick. There is one dolphin, I don't remember which one, if it was Rumble or Rocky or whatever, that is captive or that you refuse to oh my god, whatever. Again, why nets? They never justify this. He doesn't talk about the problem of food deprivation. I don't get that, because Rick was one of the first people that came out of the industry and constantly insisted on how they broke their minds with the use of food deprivation. He talks about this when it comes to addressing Taiji. It's even something that you see when you film the Taiji trainers when they train freshly captured individuals from the drives. Oh, he never talks about this. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Tomorrow or in another day I'll go over that. I think I'll end the stream or whatever. I'll end the stream. Hope you have a nice day. And Godspeed.